Northern Zambia was a trip none of us had ever really thought about doing. We'd all spent time on the Zambezi back in its heyday and never really linked the northern provinces to being a whitewater destination. Most people would be surprised to hear that Zambia has more than just the Zambezi for kayaking. Our team would be a group of friends from the old Zam days, world-renowned kayaker Steve Fisher, New Zealand's Ben Brown, local Zambian and expedition leader James Hitchens, photographer Des Pickers and myself Dan Campbell. We also had an old friend of ours there, driver Kenny. The trip started in the small tourist town of Livingston and headed quickly north through the capital Lusaka. We had at least 2 days drive before we even got close to picking off the first piece of whitewater on our list. The only information we had for this trip was from an old guidebook that James had found with a few photos of waterfalls in it.
Like on this map there's a few marked falls, and then obviously the book's full of more and more falls. So I'm thinking we stick to James's plan as where he's got us rushing up to the sort of main event first, and then we get that in the can, and then from there it's like, okay, whatever time's left, work our way back. Because often we make the mistake of getting too excited by everything on the way there, and then you never end up reaching the end goal.
Our first stop was Kundalila Falls, a waterfall that was listed in the Zambian guidebook. The falls were well over 200 feet high and had awesome views of one of Central Africa's rift valleys. We met the waterfall custodian and a few of the local villagers there. It was actually a National Heritage Park, so we had to pay a few bucks to visit. I guess it had been a busy summer for visitors. We were the third group to come through all year. The run itself was short but spectacular. It was like walking down into a totally different world. We had just spent the past day and a half driving through dry African savanna, typical to this part of the country. This little gorge was lush wet rainforest with its own unique ecosystem. We spent a few hours bumbling down slides and small drops until finally the water disappeared underground. The water here was definitely on the low side. We still had many hours of driving to go before reaching the northernmost tip of Zambia. We knew the rivers would have much more water up there, so with the help of a few villagers, we hiked out and headed off into the late afternoon sunset. And what a sunset it was. Shortly after making it back onto the main road, our stretched Land Rover came to a grinding halt. The gearbox had just blown up. Kenny, our driver, was quick to confirm this.
There's a different noise in the gearbox, which I'm really sure that the gearbox is fucked.
We knew we were headed into the middle of nowhere, so we came fully prepared for any breakdowns like this. We had a grill, food, a cell phone that worked about 2% of the time, lots of liquor, and most importantly, fireworks. So the next 24 hours was spent camped on the side of the road in the middle of Africa whilst we waited for our replacement vehicle to reach us. We became very good friends with the only locals around, Goat Man and the Chicken Boys. Most of the day was spent laying around getting dolly shots of our 3 new friends. Land Rover number 2 did arrive eventually. Mapika, the next town, was a good 4-hour tow away, and believe it or not, the local missionary pastor was the only gearbox mechanic around. We would certainly miss the comfort of our stretched Land Rover.